Yeah.
What's up, guys?
Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're going to give it a second. Jake, let us know when we are live on the internets.
The interwebs. He says
Right.
live.
Oh, all right then. Well, welcome to your Tuesday afternoon, once a month meeting with our good friend Michelle Berman, Berman Media, Instagram savant, expert, coach, leader, teaching you everything you need to know about growing your business by using the IG. And today, why should you spend your 10% marketing budget on Instagram? What a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go. Where do we go with this? 10%. But first of all, let me just stop you right there. Why just 10%?
Well, you know what 10% represents for agents, obviously, I assume.
Let's share that just in case anybody's not aware.
Yeah, so I think Jeff and I definitely know this, but I mean, I'd imagine that most realtors in the room should know this, right? But you're taught to put 10% of your marketing budget back into your business, or sorry, 10% of your commission back into your business as part of your marketing budget. So that's kind of the standard number that is taught across the universe of real estate. And when I came up with the title, it was really a thought process of, okay, so our 10% doesn't go as far on ads anymore, right? We all know that the world of Facebook ads has changed dramatically over the last year and a half. We also know that grassroots marketing is very expensive with very, very low conversion. It does work, and I'm by no means knocking it. However, I am saying that it is expensive for the return, right? It is very low return for very high expense. So when I came up with the idea of this conversation, it was, how can we use that 10% to make it, one, go farther, right? And two, convert better, so that that 10% we're putting in makes us 4, 5, 6, 10 times the investment.
Yeah. And before I turn it over to kind of really dive deep, I do want to say something here, because first of all, I've been noticing real estate coaches. And some of these are very traditional coaches that teach, I'm going to use the word antiquated strategies, which I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean typical. I mean traditional. I mean, you can go in any brokerage and learn it. And I'm noticing that I'm hearing and seeing messages of people saying things like, stop calling your clients, stop doing these traditional things, and start touching them and connecting with them on social, because that's where they want to be connected with. That's where you're meeting your client, where they want to be met. And it's fascinating. It's fact. You and I have been saying this for a number of years. The world's catching up. And this is only going to continue to grow. This is only going to continue to evolve. And so for those of you that are there, that are here today, I applaud you for this, because what Michelle's going to teach you is, again, how to make that dollar go potentially further. And Michelle, I think you could even attest to this, even without that 10% tithe. You're also, you could do this organically, effectively. And there's a lot of ways that you can do it if you're just consistent and you just follow the strategies that Michelle teaches. So take it away, sister.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I think the most important piece to this, right, is investing in your business is super important. And I honestly don't care who it's with, right? Like, make the investment in your business, whether that's in me and Jeff and whoever. Like, it doesn't matter. The point is that investing time and effort and energy into Instagram is going to pay you dividends if you have a plan, right? And the 10%, when I think of that, I think of 10% of your commission, whatever that might be, back into your marketing budget, right? But when you think about the standard or the average course on the market, I would say it's, between $3 to $5 grand. Like, that's not even close to your 10%, right? So the 10% is actually more of your time than it is your money. And that's really important to think about when you think about, like, what are you actually investing? So it's not always about the dollars and cents. It's also about the time that you're putting into it. So the strategy behind why Instagram and why is that a place to put your 10%? Jeff, if you're open to it, I think we should have a really candid discussion around relevancy. And I think that that's kind of what we've seen the most over the last few weeks. My team and I, we've been talking to a lot of real estate agents who are getting ready to double down over the next few months, knowing what is most likely coming in 2024 based off the data and the trends and this really what most of the professionals are saying. And what it comes down to is relevance. So am I relevant enough right now to make it through the end of the year and to have a killer year next year? Meaning the tiny doors that I'm opening now and the effort I'm putting into my business now, through the content I'm producing on social, through the relationships that I'm spending time on, even if they're not buying, right? Like, even if they're the relationships in my DMs and they're not buying anything yet, right? They're not ready to, maybe they don't have the money genuinely. That's okay, because those relationships still matter. But what I'm able to do is create relevance on a very scalable level, right? Because I can stay connected to all of these people for the next 6 months. And when the business turns around for them, because I'm still relevant to them, because they still see content from me, because they're still getting messages from genuine curiosity from me, when they do have the dollars and cents, or when they are ready to go to an event, or when they are ready to do XYZ, it's going to be with me, right? And that's the idea. So putting 10% of your commission back into your marketing on Instagram is a matter of relevance. And it's a matter of, are you going to be relevant when it matters for those people that are not ready yet?
Visibility is credibility.
I love that. Couldn't be more true.
Absolutely. All right, carry on. So let's get deep.
Yeah. So how do we create relevance, right? And I think that I had a really, really good discussion with Cindy Ertman earlier today. If you're not familiar with her, she's kind of the queen bee of the mortgage industry coaching side of things. And we had this really, really good discussion around how a lot of these bigger team leaders, larger brokerage owners, larger mortgage company owners, who, because they're as large as they are, think that they don't need to have the social presence, right? Like, oh, I have a team of 20 people. Let's let them worry about their social presence because they all work for me, or they're all part of my company. And that's all the visibility I need. Right. And it was a really interesting discussion, but Jeff, I want to know what you think about that. Cause I think there's definitely someone that could play devil's advocate on that, on both sides of it. But I'm going to err on the side of the bigger your organization is, and the more important the brand is, and the more important that you're protecting the message that's being shared.
Say it again. What was the response about because of the size?
Yeah, so there's a lot of larger real estate companies, leaders of larger real estate companies, leaders of larger mortgage companies who are stating or making comments on coaching calls that, well, they have 20 agents that work in their office. Like, does Instagram really matter for them personally? Right? Because all of those 20 agents are doing all of the marketing to promote themselves, which inadvertently promotes the brokerage or inadvertently promotes the office. So why do I, as the leader, or why does this individual that I'm referencing, there's several of them, but why does that matter to them? And what I was saying is that there's a devil's advocate side of that where you could see both sides, right? And you could say, if we're talking about the word relevance, because I think that that's the most important word of the day, right? That individual thinks that they're already relevant, right? If they have 20 agents in their office, they're doing 200 transactions a year. Like, are they worried about being relevant because they already think they are, right? Or the agents are doing the legwork for them. Whereas I personally would err on the other side of that and say that it's more important for those people who have that presence, who have 20 agents in their office, who run large mortgage companies, whatever that might be, to have the presence and also to protect the message that's being shared.
I mean, here's my answer. I call bullshit. Anybody who makes an excuse like that they shouldn't have a social presence is just coming up with an excuse why they don't want to do it or why they don't understand. Because frankly, and I don't know how many of you on this today or watching this today are in a leadership position, but have you ever heard of the lead by example concept? And listen, agents are getting savvier. And if you're listening to this, whether you're a leader or you're an agent, I will challenge the leaders to say that, first of all, if you're not relevant on social and your agents, and you've got agents that are super relevant on social, there's going to come a time they outgrow you, and they're going to want to align with people that can help them grow. It's not just about supporting it. It's not just about saying, good job. Yes, keep doing it. Because there's a lot of brokers that actually say, stop doing it, which I cannot believe anybody's still saying that. But you need to be relevant just to stay on the same level as them, or they're going to outgrow you. I promise you that. And if you're an agent that's not leadership and you're a part of one of those brokerages, I'm going to tell you right now, again, maybe they support you and that's great, but you are going to handicap your growth if you're not aligned with the right people. And so I do think that's incredibly important. I think brokerages need to evolve massively going forward. And frankly, Michelle, I'll be honest with you, as a leader in the industry on both sides of the ball, I love hearing it because it just validates that our industry still has so far to go to really catch up here. And it's only a matter of time. And that for all of you on here today, again, applaud you for being here. And you are a step ahead because most people are still ignoring this kind of stuff.
Well, yeah. And Ryan commented in the chat. I don't know if I'm going to say his last name right. Vogt, V-O-G-T, that agents can pack up and go anytime. And what's so interesting about that, Ryan, and so interesting about your point is I've been saying that for years, right? Like, your brand has to be portable. You have to be able to pick it up and move it with you, because the reality is that most agents will change brokerages 2 to 3 times throughout their career on average, right? That's an average. There are some that stay with the brokerage for 20 years and retire. And there are some that'll go through 15 brokerages because that's just who they are. But the reality is, and I had a very candid conversation with actually the broker owner of the office that I hire, like for that, my agent that I used to buy my house here works in, and the broker owner and I became friends throughout that process because of the fact that, obviously I was building a house and it took 7 months. So there was a lot of talking going on. And we actually talked, and she left a big name brokerage. I'm not going to name names. Not only were commissions or commission splits horrendous for a seasoned agent, but in addition to that, the brokerage only wanted they wanted all the recognition, right? Their logo had to be on everything. Their logo had to be on every social media post. Their logo had to be in every email that went out. The individual had to use the coloring or some variation of that brokerage's coloring. And it became very restricting for the individual. And it was almost like the individual didn't have an identity outside of that office, right? And where I'm going with this is when we talk about coaching individual agents, or we talk about offices, and I'm a huge preacher on who is the person that you want to serve, who are you, and how can you serve that individual person, and being able to get really, really identified and narrowed down on who that person is. And most of you guys know this about me, but I'm a very fit individual. I work out 6 to 7 days a week. I train at a very high level as often as I can. I also am living in a military town. My husband is retired military, and somebody asked me earlier this week it was yesterday morning on a call. They're like, well, Michelle, if you were to pick your niche, what would it be? Like if you were to go sell real estate? And I said, I was like, I would focus on military families who are into fitness, right? Who are PCSing to military towns who are into fitness. And there was one lady on the call. She goes, well, isn't that a really small marketplace? And I was like, nope. There's 150,000 soldiers at Fort Campbell here. So that's 150,000 families, most likely. If you narrow it down to how many are actually married, it's maybe 100,000 out of the 150,000. And then if you look at the proximity of gyms in the Clarksville, Fort Campbell area, and CrossFit gyms even alone, there's like 7 CrossFit gyms in a 20-mile radius. That's a lot of families, and that's plenty of people for me to have a very successful real estate business if that's what I decided to do. And the benefit to that, in addition to that statement, is that it becomes the domino effect or the ripple effect, right? Of how many people know other people, right? Ryan says owns the gyms as well. Thank you for being so active in the chat, Ryan. You're awesome. But the people who own the gyms is a great point, right? But the reality is like if you have 15 clients that you're actively talking to that are fitness related individuals who happen to be military, if each one of those person refers you one person over the course of the year, that's a crap ton of people, right? And it becomes this ripple effect down. So just because I narrowed my market to a very specific clientele does not mean that people outside of that won't find me or won't reach out to me. And if anything, it makes me more desirable to those people. And I know that we've talked about that before. But here's where this gets really, really, can we get into strategy and more about spending on IG? Yes. Somebody's asking that. Thank you for pushing us back in another direction. But the long story short here is that brand, right? What that represents for you, if you were to pick up and go, is you have to be portable. And the relevancy factor, if we get back to that, which is what we're really trying to talk about here, if in order to stay relevant, you can't be bouncing your brand, right? You can't have a new brand every 5 seconds. You can't be changing your colors. You can't be changing your logo all the time, because nobody's going to be able to follow you on your journey. And some of the best relationships that you will ever have are the people who watch you from 3 years ago to today, or from 5 years ago to today, and are finally ready to hire you, right? Maybe they weren't interested in moving or buying or anything until now, but they've been following you for that long. And if you ping pong your brand that many times, it makes it really hard for you to stay relevant to them. And that's really what we're talking about when we say that word.
So let's get into it. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what an agent should be doing with that 10% that you speak of.
Yeah. So really it comes down to investing it in a strategy, right? Finding a strategy that works for you, and spending money in this case to learn how to do it. And I've talked about this again at the very beginning of the call, but I'll preface this again, right? There's a lot of courses on the market, as far as Instagram is concerned. Shameless plug to ours, but, the 45-20 concept and being able to prospect on a very scalable level. If you've not heard me on a webinar on here before, go, watch any of the recordings that Jeff and I have done together. We talk about the 45-20 rule a lot. But why the 10% should be spent on Instagram? The answer to that question is it is wildly scalable. And being able to scale while also staying relevant is really important. And Instagram gives you the opportunity to do both.
So let's give some specific examples. So again, you're telling me I should be spending my marketing dollars on Instagram. What does that mean? Does that mean I should be running ads, boosting posts? What should I be doing with that 10%? Should I be investing it in the quality of the content, a video editor? What is it? Where is it that I should be spending this that's going to get possibly, I know there's no guarantees, the best bang for my buck?
Yeah, I mean, again, I've mentioned that a few times now, and the answer is invest in a strategy. Azita's asking me to reel it down. Invest in a strategy, guys. Buy a course, buy something that's going to teach you exactly what to do. And what I will tell you is that not everything needs to be about fancy video editing, right? I'm a huge believer in use your iPhone, and there are plenty of apps on your phone to be able to edit. Jeff did a fun video edit on a video actually live and in person in a room with me with a bunch of my clients, that he did it in a matter of 5 minutes, barely. It does not need to be professionally edited. You do not need to be spending $2,500 a month on fancy videos that you're getting videographers to do. There's value in that over the big scheme of things, but that's not going to make you money the way that you think it's going to make you money. Because the raw, authentic content is what people really, really want. So where should you, what should you be investing in? Investing in the knowledge of how to actually lead gen, right? And that's what I'm talking about is if you're spending 10% of your marketing budget on a course, is that course teaching you lead gen, right? And when I say lead gen, I say, is it teaching you how to find those people in your ideal clientele on Instagram in a very specific, very strategic way? And if you buy a course that's telling you just to buy more stuff, it's not the right course for you, right? Because if you're buying a course that's then going to tell you, well, you also need this and you also need that and you also need this, then the course is just delegating. It's not actually teaching you how to do anything, right? It's just telling you to go buy more things that are going to take more and more learning outside of that.
Well, I want to cut you off because I understand what you're saying. So you were very, I get it. Okay. Invest in the knowledge, but now let's break this down. Now let's talk about, okay, so, all right, fine, cool. I get it. I'm going to invest in the knowledge. What is it going to teach me? What are some of the tactics that I'm going to learn that I can now apply with that strategy or within that course?
Yep. So the biggest one is sales psychology and DMing, right? So sales psychology and understanding what that means is an important part to prospecting on Instagram, right? Meaning if you're creating an organic presence, you're building a very organic following. Everyone's always saying, well, how do I get more followers? How do I get more followers? Yes, I can give you plenty of examples of people that I've coached. I'd be happy to. Honestly, just go to my Instagram and there's a crap ton of them in all my highlights. But I'll put my Instagram handle in here real quick, and then I'm going to answer Jeff's question. So you guys can go see, I have a ton of highlights answering that question. So getting back to the prospecting aspect, right? So if you're building a very organic presence, people always want to know, where do the followers come from? How do I get more followers? If you're asking that question, it's the wrong question. How do I get the right followers, right? It doesn't have to be fast. It doesn't have to be large volume. It has to be the right people, right? So if my ideal audience is people in the CrossFit community or people who are military families that are into fitness in a military town, right? Executing content is important, right? Meaning we're producing content that serves them, right? What are their questions? If you're moving to a town and you're really into fitness, and you're in the military world, maybe there's two big things, right? The proximity to being close to base is important, right? Especially if, in this case, for me, my husband works on base. Second thing is I need to be close to a CrossFit gym, right? So if you're my real estate agent, how can you produce content to serve what would be my problem, right? Of finding a piece of property that is going to suit that and serve that. It also has to be close to a really, really good school because I have an almost 2-year-old. Right. So as the agent, you could be the community expert and go and create content, interview the different CrossFit gyms, talk about the different neighborhoods or the different subdivisions around the CrossFit gyms and become kind of that on pounding the pavement expert in that area. That's one pillar of that. That's one piece of it. What really, really matters aside from the content is the conversations that you're starting or the initiating of those connections that you're trying to make, right? So the 45-20 strategy is the most important thing you guys will learn.
Keep going.
Yeah,
Stay on task. Stay on task. Just
no,
keep
I know.
going.
I just keep
going.
getting, like, I keep seeing
That's
the
good.
messages
That's
and it's
all right.
on in the middle of my screen. So the 45-20 rule, right? You're building the content, you're producing the value for those individuals. Now you actually have to be talking to the individuals, right? And that's where the 45-20 is coming into play. 45 conversations, 45 comments and 20 story replies per day, per day for the week. So that's 5 days across the week. I don't encourage engagement over the weekends unless that's when you want to do it, but really just pick 5 days in general, right? If you do that all 5 days of the week, whatever days you assign it to, that's 225 new conversations that you're producing over the course of the week. Now, here's where the sales psychology aspect comes into this. And this is really, really important. When you're doing the comments or you're doing the story replies, there's a formula for how you have and how you initiate the conversation. So it's 3 pieces that makes up that initial touch point. The very first thing, whenever you are creating or initiating a conversation, is you have to acknowledge the piece of content, right? So if you're commenting on someone's piece of content and you are saying something like, wow, this is awesome. What's awesome? Like, did you actually read the caption? Did you actually watch the story if it was a video? Did you actually read the text that was in the story if somebody took the time to write it out, right? So actually taking the time to acknowledge the piece of content. Now, mind you, this initial piece of engagement, if you will, is anywhere from 2 to 3 sentences. It's not 2 words. It's not 4 words and an emoji, right? It takes time, right? This is why I was saying 10% is not necessarily financial. It's also time, right? So the initial opening of that 2 to 3 sentences is acknowledgement of the piece of content. Now the bread and butter is the middle, right? So the bread and butter of this is the middle piece of that engagement, which is subliminal marketing, right? Get nostalgic. This reminds me so much of a client that I helped last year when they were moving here, right? Or this reminds me so much of a friend I used to work out with who turned into a client, blah, 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 right? Get nostalgic, lean into the storytelling aspect of something that you've actually experienced. If you're a brand new real estate agent, you can still do this. You can still talk about, you can say it, somebody that I used to work with, right? You can still touch all of the subliminal messaging in that. And then the final piece to your initial touch point is a question that starts in what, why, how, right? Now, that's really, really important. If you're not ending it in the form of a question, don't expect a long reply or reply at all, right? You might get a double tap, somebody acknowledges it and like hearts it, and that's probably all you'll get. You may get some feedback, but it's going to be minor. But by opening or by ending it in an open-ended question like that, that is coming from a place of curiosity and genuineness, right? The person on the other end is going to be able to tell if it's authentic or not. Then what's going to happen is 2 big things. Number one, you're going to get way longer responses, right? And this is not just me saying this. This is proven data that we have done and we have tested in our company my company every single day, right? This is true, tried and true data where the responses are way longer. And you're also more likely to have conversations that continue past that initial opening statement or initial question, right? So the person's more likely to respond with intention, and they're more likely to allow the conversation to continue, which translates into the funnel, which we talked about I think it was last month, we were talking about the lead funnel, right? Which is the more likely you are to get somebody through all of these touch points and through these types of conversations. When you get all the way down to the bottom of the funnel, when you get on the phone with someone, that person's already sold, they're ready to go. And that means you're actually only on the phone with people who are qualified to be on the phone with you, who are actually at the end of that genuinely ready to get on the phone. So you're not wasting your time on mindless or pointless calls. And you're also not wasting your time trying to get someone to want to buy and sell who you haven't pre-qualified through the types of questions that you're asking in your DMs. Now people are probably like, well, what are the questions? Guys, there's a lot to that. That sales psychology, which I spend a lot of time coaching and teaching on every single day. But I will tell you that when it comes to actually going for the ask and attempting to move the meeting, the most important thing you can do in your DMs when you're trying to do this is leverage the form of connection you've already made, right? So that a very initial conversation or initial comment or story reply that you sent to someone, there was some form of connection in that, right? Maybe it was about the CrossFit gym, maybe it was about coffee, maybe it was about their dog, maybe it was about Tesla, maybe it was about a quote that they shared that reminded you of a friend, right? Like whatever that form of connection is, you have to learn to leverage that in your ask. So when you go to move the meeting, saying something like, hey, Jeff, I know you and I've been chatting a ton about running, and I'm actually getting ready to do a 5K in a few months. Like, I'd love to meet up with you next week to go for a run. And then maybe we can grab coffee afterward to talk about what's going on with you for buying and selling right now. And being able to go for the ask poignantly, like straight up, but leverage the connection in the ask, right? So me offering or me asking you, Jeff, to, hey, let's go for a run because I know you're a runner and I'm getting ready to do a 5K. Like all of a sudden you're like, wow, this person wants to run with me, but also can we go get coffee? You're more likely to say yes, right? Because I actually am coming from a place of authenticity. And that conversation, maybe they're not ready to buy, but they are probably still going to say yes to having the conversation because maybe they can refer you to somebody else. Maybe they're just interested in the relationship aside from the real estate side of it, which then turns into you have no idea what could come from that, right? The subliminal relationships or the subliminal opportunities that could come out of that.
Let me unpack for a second, because there's a lot.
People wanted this strategic, and there you go.
No,
I can tangent all day.
That's great. No, I mean, there's two things I want to point out there too, going back to kind of what Ryan had asked or mentioned about the example, which is give what you want to get, essentially, is kind of how I heard that. In other words, if you're into fitness and you're into going to the gym, but you're also into military, well, portray that, because once you portray that, the algorithm is going to know
a bunch of those people to you.
Correct.
And
exactly.
vice versa.
And so doing that is going to create those connections. But I also heard you talking about really that the engagement piece, which isn't which has really nothing to do with posting. In fact, I think you could even argue that to be successful on social, it's not just about posting. Now, that's a critical component, but it's not the end all, because if you're a really good engager, you can just connect with people all day long. And I think it's such a missing piece on a social strategy, because we get so caught up in watching the influencer doing the influencer thing,
the content,
the video, the sexy edits, the jump cuts and all this cool stuff and the captions. And I think it paralyzes us. But for many of you, you may never go down that road. And what Michelle teaches, which is how to penetrate. And frankly, I'm just going to say it, Michelle, don't be lazy. When you're engaging with people, if you just leave emojis and you truly want to make a connection, you're not going to get it. To me, Michelle, what I call when I leave emojis for you, that's me just saying add a girl. I'm not trying to connect. I'm just pumping you up and
acknowledging.
Hitting your, yeah, exactly. It's better than nothing, right? But if you really want to have a conversation, and there's no
Put it this
science.
way, if you want to lead generate, that's not the way to do it. It's not going to work. Yeah. Jeff, you and I already have an amazing relationship offline, that our relationship online is a matter of relevancy, right? Mm-hmm. Back to that piece, right? Staying relevant in one another's world for when our next opportunity comes where we're going to do something together, right? Which is important to both of us. But the other thing about this goes back to what I was saying before. I know you guys were frustrated that I was like, what are we spending the 10% on? This is what I'm talking about, is the 10% is on the knowledge it takes to execute conversations like this. Right? Mm-hmm. Because there is so much that goes into what that conversation looks like, how to move the meeting. I mean, just alone in the last 10 weeks, I've put my entire team through hardcore sales training from a very expensive business coach for us. Not for me, but for my girls, right? My engagement team specifically, that do this on behalf of our VIP clients, just to sharpen their skills for how they attempt to move meetings, right? Because while we're really good at it, what's more important is that we're always the best at it, right? And we're always moving meetings very, very directly, but rooted in connection, rooted in authenticity. And how do we unpack that, right? And the most important thing you guys can understand is that human psychology and what we need is to feel seen, heard, and valued. And people want to talk about themselves. So if all you're doing is leaving a statement, it gives them no opportunity to actually open up and talk to you, right? And to go back to your content piece, Does your content matter? Is it as relevant as the engagement? No, I don't think it is. However, it's not important. Why? Because if you're initiating all the engagement and you're having all of these amazing conversations, and I go back to your content and there's nothing about anything that we've been chatting about in your DMs on your page, you've lost me. There is no credibility there, right? So if you go to my Instagram, there's lots of fitness in my DMs. There's lots of fitness in my in my all my highlights. I talk about working out all the time. I also talk about living the military life and moving and being in a military town. I talk about my son all the time. I have a 2-year-old that is the sole source of life for me. And how navigating postpartum depression was a huge thing for me. For those of you guys who maybe you did or didn't follow me while I was going through that, it was the hardest year of my life, right? And being really open about that as I was talking to people when I was having conversations in my DMs, especially if I saw another woman post about being a new mom, right? Somebody posted about having a brand new baby. Well, hey, guess what? Me too. And me then coming from a place of authenticity, asking a question allows for the connection to really be developed and built. And it will last. Those relationships will last, most importantly, right? So your content is like when we talk about psychology in this, right? If we even get back to the root of why Instagram was created in the first place, it's a visual sharing platform, right? Instagram is designed to be what the human eye wants, which is imagery, right? We want pictures, we want videos, we want to watch something, we want to see something, right? So you have to capture us and then you have to keep us, right? So there's a lot of value in the content, and by no means are we devaluing the effort you should put into it. But it is not the end all be all, because if content is what you're putting all of your time and money into, it won't work.
Candy wants you to repeat the 45-20 strategy.
Who did?
Candy in the Q&A.
Oh, I didn't even see the Q&A. I just saw the chat.
That's right.
So the 45-20 strategy is 45 comments and 20 story replies. So 45 comments on people's content on their feed. That would be your public facing, and then 20 story replies would be your DM. So you're responding to someone's story, and that message is going to end up in their DMs, which is their private inbox. There's a lot of value in that, right? People are more likely to open up there without question, because it's a private space, not a public forum.
Thank you. And Azita had, and I answered it, but I want you to articulate it as well. So conversations can be on other people's posts, no matter if we follow them or not.
Absolutely. In fact, it should be, right? The idea is we're prospecting. So this is a big misconception, in my opinion, in the real estate space, right? Everyone tells you leverage your sphere when you're becoming a new agent, or leverage your sphere to maintain your book of business, right? The reality is that most of your business, your brand new business, might come from your sphere when you're first out of the gate, but most of your business is not going to come from your direct friends or family, right? And so when it comes to prospecting, you need to be willing to go outside that. So to answer your question, Azita, yes, it should be primarily on people outside of that, outside of people you're following. And the strategy, the 45-20 strategy, just for those of you guys who are even interested in understanding it more on a deeper level, right? It's an Excel spreadsheet. It's 5 days of the week. Each of the 5 days is broken into 3 separate categories. Hashtags, geotags, and accounts. Each of those 3 categories, the idea is that you're going and you're executing in those 3 categories to get to 45 comments and 20 story replies. If it's built properly, you'll have way more content than you could ever need each day of the week to get to 45 and 20. Meaning if you have 5 hashtags listed, 5 accounts listed, 5 geotags listed, you won't even get through all of the hashtags, and you'll easily have done 45 comments and 20 story replies. Like that, if it's done right, that's what should happen. And I'm going to go back to a comment Ryan made, like to give an example for military families and that are into fitness. On the engagement piece specifically, I already kind of mentioned a good example on the content side. But on the engagement side, if let's just say Tuesday was my fitness day, right? So I live at Fort Campbell in Clarksville, Tennessee. So let's just say that Tuesday is my fitness day. So I'm going to break it down between accounts, geotags, and hashtags. I'm going to find 5 hashtags that are related to fitness within Clarksville. It could be hashtag Clarksville gyms, hashtag Clarksville fitness, hashtag Clarksville CrossFit, whatever those hashtags might be. Again, you're going to have to do the research to find what those might be in your particular area. Then I'm going to find 5 accounts. So I'm going to find 5 accounts that are actual accounts as a whole, right? So CrossFit Sango is the name of the gym that I go to here. So I'm going to look at CrossFit Sango's Instagram account, and on Tuesdays on my military fitness day, I'm going to go to CrossFit Sango's account. I'm going to see if they have a most recent piece of content. I'm going to engage with it. If they have a story up, I'm going to reply to it with the formula that I mentioned. Now, why would I do this, right? People ask me this all the time, multiple times a week. Why would I do that? The answer is that the ideal client for me is someone that's consuming that content. So if I'm leaving a comment on their post on their feed, guess who's seeing my comment? Not just CrossFit Sango's owners who are checking their Instagram, but every other individual that's consuming that page's content, which most likely are either CrossFitters or people that are interested in CrossFit Sango, or friends or family of those people who are following the accounts, right? Which means that if they click on my account and go to and look at my content, if I've done my job correctly, right, my Instagram is going to reflect what I do for a living and who I am outside of it, which is going to be easy for them to find the connection that I have to CrossFit, right? And then the other third one, or the third category, is geotags. Geotags, in my opinion, is the most underrated gold mine of Instagram when it comes to Instagram engagement. Geotags are exactly what it sounds like. It's tagging the location, right? So when someone tags themselves at a location on Instagram, that shows up in the geotag tab, separate from the accounts tab, separate from the hashtags tag or tab. Sorry, all those words start to fall together. But in the geotags tab, you're going to see anyone who's ever tagged themselves in that location, right? So those could be people who are, you're going direct to an individual, right? You're finding other individuals, maybe on their more influencer status, right? If they're tagging potentially, or in general, you're just getting directly to the source. But most people aren't looking in that tab. And the benefit there is that most likely, this is the biggest reason why I believe it's a gold mine, is most likely those people were very recently there, right? So it's very relevant, back to that word. It's very relevant to them if you engage consistently in there, right? So if you come back to the hashtag, or I'm sorry, if you come back to the geotag CrossFit Sango once a week, I guarantee you there's 10 to 15 new posts that you could engage on, because you're only doing that category once a week, right? So by the time you come back to it, there's a ton of other individuals that have tagged themselves there. And if you're doing it correctly, right, you have geotags for all 5 or all 7 of the CrossFit gyms in the city that you're in, right? So you have an array of content to be engaging with. So I have a big problem when people are like, well, I've ran out of content to engage with. Well, then you need to update your tracker, or you need to get some help with your tracker, right? Again, where are you spending your 10%?
Love it. Love it. We're running short on time. I think one of the things that also needs to be pointed out too, as you follow what Michelle is telling you, and I want to kind of retract somewhat what I said earlier, which is that the content becomes less important. The only thing about Instagram, Michelle, is that, you know, the inclination of an audience or a viewer or someone you might connect with is when you then connect with them. So Azita, let's just say you start going to people's posts and you're commenting on them, which I love the idea. The inclination of most of those people is going to go stalk you. And if they stalk you and they see nothing relevant or nothing at all, or it's a constant, it's just a feed filled with real estate spam, they're not, gone, right? And so this is why what Michelle teaches is so incredibly important, that you understand this and then follow along. This isn't get rich quick. This is a process. You commit to the process. It's gold. It's been gold for me. It's been gold for you. It's been gold from a lot of our friends. That's why we all swim in the same pools nowadays. So Michelle, if somebody wants to connect with you because they really want more of this and they want this immersive training, how do they do so? How do they connect with you?
Yeah, honestly, I'll put my Instagram handle again in the chat box, just because we've had some really good engagement. So it probably got pushed down a little bit, which is awesome. I love all the questions. But Instagram is definitely the easiest place. I actually have a big private event coming up in October. Jeff was a former guest speaker at one of mine a few years ago. But it is my once a year only private event. It is a very small mastermind, so it's only for 15 people. We have not announced the speakers yet because we are keeping it very close to our chest, but they are official. And marketing begins next week. So if you're not in my sphere, that's a good place to get, is just on Instagram. But Also, as far as other opportunities, obviously you guys could buy the course if that makes sense for you and for your business. Beyond the Method is the name of my program. Reach out to me on Instagram. I'm happy to jump on a call with you and just talk through what that even looks like. Like, it's not for everyone, and I'm good with that. But it is going to be for those of you guys who are interested in putting the time and effort into what I've described over the last 45 minutes with you guys. It is very strategic. It's very intentional. It's rooted in the word psychology for a reason. And it's not going to be, as Jeff said, your get rich quick scheme. However, I will tell you that the clients that we have had that have put the time in the way that I teach it, they are killing it. So I track our metrics for our VIP clients, which is the people that we do it all for them. So we have our VIP program separate from course students. We have our VIPs that we track their wins, right? So we see, and we have an entire Slack channel that shows us all of the leads that have come in for all of our VIPs across the board. It's our sales meeting. On our sales meeting yesterday, we had 52 wins last week for our VIPs. So those 52 leads that our different VIP clients had received over the course of the week. I don't know about you guys, but that's my favorite Slack channel. There's nothing that I love more than seeing my clients win. And for you, that might be a direct to consumer lead. For some of you guys, that might be other agents that you're trying to generate. For some of you guys, that might be a product you're trying to sell. It might be a course you're trying to sell. Whatever it is, it's all about strategy, and it's all about understanding the art of conversation, and how to leverage it. So,
well, and to the comment that was just made about Facebook too, which is great, by the way. The one thing I will say, there's two testimonies I will give for this is, number one, Facebook and Instagram talk to each other. So it's a very natural segue. If you're a diehard Facebooker, which many are, shifting over to Instagram is very easy because there's a couple buttons and they're now connected. I'm not going to go deep on this, Michelle, but I
disagree with her comment in there that IG is more global. It doesn't, like, if you follow the strategy here of executing and building the tracker out properly, as I was even mentioning, like what the accounts, geotags, and hashtags that I was talking about for Clarksville, Tennessee, and gyms locally, like there's nothing global about that, right? That's very hyper focused. That's very hyper local to where I currently live and the business that I would be trying to attract.
It's all about the content. It's all about the content, because I could argue that TikTok's global too, but I have a very specific geo strategy with 43,000 followers all around a geographic area in Missouri, a rural area, by the way. And so it's all about what you want it to be. The global statement is true, but what Michelle said is also true, that you can very much niche down geographically very easily
1000%.
on Instagram.
Honestly, some of our most successful clients that are doing this on the engagement side of things are in smaller communities, right? Because there's nobody else doing it in their community. People want to spend money on ads. People want to spend money on like buying data for foreclosures or buying data for, all the people that are close to transactions. But the reality is like, yeah, you can buy that data, but are you talking to them? Right? So buy the data and talk to them, and game over.
Yeah. Last thing I was going to say before we wrap up as well is that, one of the things that I did years ago was invest in the education on this stuff. I spent the time, I spent the money, I spent the resources to learn, and it's so understated. And again, I know that obviously you sell this stuff. The first thing that you all should do is go connect and follow Michelle on Instagram and follow along, because a lot of this content, as I'm just looking through her reels, is going to give you just a wealth of knowledge. And so it starts there, and you need to invest. You need to be intentional about your time spent on social. Stop going down rabbit holes and watching French bulldogs and golf and boating or whatever it is you're into. Start being intentional, start following the people that can teach you, learn from them. And many of you are going to be inspired to invest, and you should, because people like me, it's changed my life. And Michelle, I know it has you as well. And we have countless other friends. So thank you for being here today. It's Berman Media Social. That's one N on Berman. Go follow her on Instagram, connect with her, send her a DM, because it will be very much worth your while. Michelle, I look forward to doing this again in a month.
I know. I was just going to say that, like, every month I just feel like we get better and better at dropping bombs for people. So thanks, Jeff, for always being a proactive conversationalist Is that a word? I don't know. I just made that up.
I do my best. I do my best.
I love it. And thank you guys for all your questions. It's awesome. And we'll see you guys next month.
Bye-bye.
Bye.